Hi there, I'm Barret Bowman. I'm a filmmaker, and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast.
This week we are heading stateside to Los Angeles as we speak to the incredible ball of energy that is filmmaker Barret Bowman. From finding his way into the world of filmmaking to working as part of the incredible team at Goodr Sunglasses, Barret shares his journey with us. The insights from someone who is such an open book about his story is truly fascinating. We explore the challenges, taking risks, the lessons learned, teamwork, feedback, and even some advice from his future self. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you're joining us today, and then it's time to sit back and enjoy our conversation as we dive into episode 88 of the Rogue Monkey podcast, featuring Barret Bowman, exploring filmmaking and his path in becoming recklessly committed to fun. Hello, Barret, and welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Good. Hello. Great. I'm happy to do this.
I'm buzzing. It's been been 7 or 8 months now since we said we would do this, but cannot believe it's such an experience we had last summer that it's now led to a podcast. So really grateful for you sharing some time.
Yeah, and I want to publicly own that I've missed out on this a couple times, but I appreciate your patience with me. So thank you.
Well, do you want to give our listeners and viewers out there just a bit of an introduction and a bit of a headline journey as to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, name's Barret Bowman. I live in Los Angeles. I'm from Colorado originally. I'm a filmmaker, storyteller, and yeah, I've been out here for 12 years now, trying to just make movies, make the career happen. And then along that way, I became the director of content at Goodr Sunglasses, and that's been a big part of my life. And so now I run the content team over there while I try to just stay sane, be a better person, show up for my team, and my partner and my friends and all that jazz.
Awesome. Well, let's cast our mind back because it all sounds a bit cliche living out there and doing filmmaking. So how did it all start? Where was that first thread that you kind of grabbed hold of and ended up where you are?
Probably like literally drama class in like high school sort of stuff. I had a great teacher named Chip McAnulty who really just told me I can be whatever I want to be. And allowed me to try to do that. And then I think I made a shift from I was a hockey player. Like hockey was like my life. I really thought I was going to try to go to college and play hockey and just use that. But that's where it started. And then I was like, I want to go to film school. He had a friend who was a director that I spoke with, named Gary Lundgren, who that was a pivotal moment to be able to be a high school student and talk to someone on the phone who has directed a feature film. And then at that point I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm going to film school. I'm the type to dive headfirst into a pool, commit to something before doing too much research, just be like, nah, we're going. I've already committed. And so, yeah, went to film school, New York Film Academy, but in Los Angeles, which is very silly. Did the 1-year program, which was expensive, but I knew I wanted to get in and get out, and just start working on stuff. And so, yeah, did that. And then that led to a location managing job. It was real rough right out of film school, had basically no money left. And then got this gig as a location manager for a really terrible company who I won't smash and throw under the bus. But that was it was a rough, and then I went on this journey of the rough few years of the beginning of trying to get things going for sure. I was a contracted freelancer doing gig work, literally across the board, shooting, editing, doing a lot of editing. I ended up working on some documentary films, and got a lot of chops in editing. I started making money editing for sure. And then ended up at Easton Sports through a film school producer. Went to high school with this guy who worked at Easton, and then he ended up needing some help to make baseball bat videos and stuff. And she was like, yeah, I know someone who's young and desperate. His name's Barret. He'll do whatever you want. And funny enough, that guy that was looking for that is Stephen Leese, and he's now the CEO of Goodr. So a lot of people even at Goodr are surprised sometimes about like how far back him and I go, or where that all started from. But, you know, a lot of these relationships that I have now even are, you know, years and years in the making. And yeah, so Easton went kind of under in a way, that whole program. We had a good time there trying to make things work. But when that went under, I was kind of like floating around a bit with my buddy Pete Castanetti, who we started a production company together. And as we were just trying to make that work for a few years, doing commercials and branded stuff, building our own brand, and it was working. That was when Goodr kind of took off, and we talked about building the team in-house. I argued against that for like a year, and a good journey that was, I think it was like 2018 around that time. And then I was full on like Goodr's all of my professional time, probably halfway through 2018. And since, yeah, joined like 2019, was like, you know, on a salary position over there type thing. And that was a really tough thing for me because I think I was like coming from this film school background, filmmaker, freelancer, contractor. The do lectures, family stuff was a big part of my life. Like I felt out there, I felt networking, I felt special and different. And like I was doing something that I owned. And I had a lot of attachment to that. So the idea of like working for a company, working for someone else was like against, it seemed like it was against everything I was like trying to work for. But thank goodness, like honestly, Steven kind of strong-armed me in a way that I'm always going to be grateful for. He was like, you know, it's either you or someone else. And I was like, well played. It's not going to be someone else. Not today. You know, and since have been so grateful that I've joined the family over there, and like it does feel like family. And now the company is just like a rocket ship. It's something I just believe in so much. And yeah, I'm just kind of riding that rocket ship over there. And as I continue to figure out what the hell I'm doing with my life.
Well, I should really, you mentioned the do lectures there, which is obviously where our paths crossed. And I want to set the scene because the story of just meeting you and Pete was quite interesting, because I got an email from the event organizer just to say, hey, would you be happy to pick up a couple of people from Heathrow on the way? It was like, yeah, cool. So me and Adam head on down, get to Heathrow Terminal 5. I'm standing there in the arrivals lounge expecting kind of someone jet lagged, you know, in a suit, just to stroll in kind of quite quiet and sedate after maybe a long haul flight. And then you appear in this quite lively shirt, bright sunglasses, hat on, flip-flops, and just walk through it. Everyone in the arrivals was like, where's this guy come from? And that was done. And then Pete was a bit more typical. He looked exhausted and kind of got in the car and had a little nap. But then we had 6 hours of hearing your story and Pete's journey. And I think one of the really interesting things is this preconception of what that experience for people is like going on the journey that you've been on. And that was obviously why I wanted to do this today. I'm curious, then once you're in that role and you kind of got past the mental hurdle, if you like, of I don't want a salary job, you know, I'm happy doing all of my own thing. How have you managed to blend the two things together so you still scratch that itch of going off and doing these different things like the do lectures, but equally having the kind of security of that permanent role?
I mean, it was really tough. Like security is what that's all about, right? Like, to be honest, you're giving up control and the ability to do whatever the hell you want and say whatever the hell you want and be on whatever timeline you want to be in a way. You're giving that up for a bit of security. And I'd never experienced that. I only had experienced being able to do whatever I want. And I have a trigger too of don't tell me what to do. Oh my God. Like it's so real. It's with my partner, my relationships, just like I jokingly say it now. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. I'll like jokingly say that to my boss, just to cope. But I just sort of believed in, I think the biggest thing is just Goodr, like the company itself, like understanding why I'm doing this, why I'm joining that team and being a part of something bigger. And that was the biggest aha moment, was like, you can be a part of something bigger that's bigger than any one commercial you make, any one film you make, or one photo shoot you do. Being a part of this and growing this in-house production team or whatever, like, can expand beyond some of the things I thought I was capable of. I think that like feature films and longer form storytelling are capable of changing perspectives and leaving an impact. But this was sort of a way where I felt like I could also do that while also honing my leadership skills, because as a director, when you're on set, that's all you're doing is leading, and oftentimes giving guidance, yes, and knowing things and solving problems, and real time too. And so I knew that, okay, all this stuff's going to help me with that. And I don't need to worry about the pressure of the journey everything happening so quick. Our generation for sure just wants results. And I think I'm realizing that, leaning into the journey here and being open to the challenges and what I can get out of it is the move. And it's been very beneficial since. I think I've become a much stronger leader and a better filmmaker and a better person through just embracing the culture there. But it's a unique case. Like I don't honestly know if I could have worked anywhere else. Like this, I have this sort of belief that I'm like, this might be my only job ever, because I'm going to be wanting it to be the way that we do things here. If I go somewhere else after, we'll see. I'm very stubborn.
I don't think you could have a testament more to a company culture than what you've just said there. And I think capturing the hearts and minds of people when you talk about something that's bigger than yourself, I think not just in the nature of being involved in a company, but every aspect of your work, it suddenly takes it to a new level, because there's that bigger picture. And obviously within a team, it's the ripple effects of everyone doing that raises things to just a whole new level. And I think, like, when people ask me about the do and what my experiences were of it, especially of you guys, I'm just like, it's another level. It's another level that people go to. And I think to have a lot of people in a place like that as a workplace is a really healthy place to be. And yeah, it might be the one job you ever had, but it's a damn good one.
Yeah. I mean, it's remnant. Like there's things, what's cool too is like, so the do lectures specifically, like Steven himself has been a part of that way back when we were doing it at Do USA. He produced one of the Do USA Do lectures. And like, it's not like crazy that there are these tiny connections through the Do lectures, and that a lot of these people in my life have experienced it. Or have heard about it at least through me. And I think that just that place kind of like curates people who understand culture and people who believe in the same things, really. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm saying, dude. I'll pontificate so hard.
This is like, anyone I told the story of our journey down to Wales, I'm like, right, watch maybe 30 seconds of like one of your commercials. And then I'm like, right, now stretch that out for 6 hours. And it was just a constant collection. And I said to Adam, if we're going down again this year, I need to rig up a camera at the front and try and capture that, because it was just kind of free and open conversation. But I guess that's the point.
Yeah. And you also, you caught me like, that is when I am in my fucking best. And also just this last Do lectures, like I was so grateful to be I mean, every year I'm grateful to be invited back. I'm like, oh, didn't mess it up last time. Got one more year, and all the years leading up, Pete and I were doing the live stream. We were doing filming stuff, and we were surrounded by equipment and bringing cases of stuff and just giving our all to this. And this last year, David, and the team wanting us to MC the event, I think Pete and I were just like, we were just like, absolutely, oh my God, ecstatic. And so I was coming off of a like European trip with like Barcelona. I'm like landing with this high of like, I can't believe they're going to let me just talk on a mic. Like, oh my God. And so I was in just such a good mood too. When I got there, as I usually am, like, knowing I'm 4 hours away from that farm, or is it 4 hours? It feels like 9 hours. Six hours. Yeah. Fuck.
It was a stop for food first, because I think you guys were pretty hungry, if I remember rightly.
I also didn't even ask you about cursing. Like, should I not be doing that? Like,
that's fine. I just need to toggle a little thing that says warning, explicit content. It's a bit more relaxed over here.
Yeah, dude. I am explicit. Let's be real.
So I've got a couple of questions, I guess, to pick up, because you said you've got to this point now where you reflect a bit more on it, and obviously you've matured and developed as a person. So looking back, and I know you're still young and very much in this journey, but what's been the best investment of your time so far? Because you must have so many different opportunities and have seen so many different things. Some are amazing, some have not perhaps panned out. So where do you look back and go, that was definitely worth doing, and I put a lot of stock in that?
Relationships, holding on to relationships, they've really threaded through things through the years. I currently work with some people that I've also worked at different companies or in different circumstances. And I think building those relationships and understanding that that's important is what I tell people now. Like, I have some people ask me about film school, and I'm like, my answer is not going to be black or white. Like, whatever film school, whatever choice, whatever school, I think it's about the relationships and the connections you're making and what you're going to do with those afterwards. That has led to everything. Like, Jenny Meyer was my producer in film school, who this sort of tree of relationships sprouts from. And she's the one who got the email from Steven way back. Then she connected me with Steven. And then from Steven, I, was at Easton. I met these people. And that's where I met Pete, who I ended up starting the production company with, who's a longtime friend and cinematographer I work with and filmmaker. And then that's where I met Duke Stump, who was working at Easton at the time. And Duke Stump was who was running Dude Lectures USA. And that's how I met that family, which then ultimately led to the Do Whales stuff. And then a lot of these people from Easton led to connections that later are now working with me at Easton. I mean, my boss, Michael Eddy, like he's the creative herd flock star at Goodr. So he is my sort of manager, and we've been friends for such a long time, and like barely had ever worked together until this capacity, but he was at Easton way back in the day. And all these relationships, like, now are really strong, and we're leaning into them even more. And now I focus on relationships almost like, not solely, but it's a huge part of what we're doing. And what my life is going to continue to be. When you're trying to make a short film happen or a small project on the side, like, relationships are going to be what help you keep the costs down and what help you just organize it in general, because you're building connections with people who want to help you. And then ultimately you're showing up and helping them, and this just kind of reverberates, I think, into everything. There was that moment at Do Lectures USA way back where I like auctioned myself off on a stage for the auction at the end. And I tell that story to people and recommend that they do it. I don't know how many circumstances you'll have to auction yourself off on a stage, but basically they have the auction at the end to raise money for charity, and I sold myself to which essentially was like, if you like at the time, dude, I was struggling as well. Like I was about to be leaving my apartment, didn't have really steady gig. Like our production company over show was, we were just trying to find connections. And so went to do lectures, was getting hella inspired, meeting people. And then at the end got an idea from someone else and was like, all right, if you guys put me up in your house and you feed me, I'll make content for you. Like I have camera, computer, like from beginning to end, I can create stuff for you. And I have the experience, but like, you got to basically take care of me like a little baby. And like 3 people bid on that. And the incredible Mark Shaler, was going up, and he was like, boom, 1, 2, 3, like looked at me like I just basically, sent you into 3 different people's homes for a little while. And that led to some amazing work. I think just throwing yourself into the deep end, it can be terrifying, but so efficient. Like it can get, you figure it out. Like you're not going to drown, and you're going to flail around, but eventually I think you'll realize you're floating, you're swimming. And that whole thing led to like a year of me not having a place to live. I was floating around. I ended up, making more connections from other people, like, and then that ultimately led to, I think I was like at Eduardo Garcia's place, who was an incredible chef, and hunter and forager. Met him through the Do Lectures, and I was at his place in Montana, and we were shooting this spec thing for like Ball Jar, and it was snowing, and it was beautiful, and like we ended up sending that to Yeti and pitching, and that was how we got like our first Yeti job. And that was just through that time, through being forced to make stuff for other people. Not forced, I mean, I did the whole situation myself. But that is the 9-hour answer to your question for relationships.
There's a really interesting point there, because you said, you're not going to drown. And I think people's perceptions of what's the worst that could happen is always worse than it actually is. And, even taking Do as an example, like when Adam first told me about it and was like, well, you go to like this place in the middle of Wales and stuff just kind of happens. And I'm like, and he's like, I can't really tell you much more than that. Just take a leap of faith. And I promise you, on the car on the way back, you will have changed your view on life. And it was true.
Would you have guessed that we would be like at the top of this amphitheater with the sun going down, drinking wine, and Adam would have a Theragun to my hip, and I'm howling to the edge of the farm because he's just hitting the right spot? No, I would have never expected that would have happened, but it makes sense now looking back that that's how our things ended up.
But I think one of the points you made there was around how fast that can accelerate your journey. And obviously there has to be some level of risk management, but actually to turn around and go, I'm just going to throw myself into it and see what happens. If you do that enough times, you can sometimes cut down months, if not years, of whether it's connections building or whether it's just actually your career progression. But I do think there's something in that around just taking that leap and being confident enough that it'll work out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of done is better than perfect. Proponent, is that the right word? I use words sometimes. I don't know what they mean, dude. I think so. Big fan of it. And I think that I learned a lot of that through Steven and Goodr. Like as a filmmaker, I think we aren't necessarily taught done is better than perfect. You're making art, and like you're always trying to make things better and look better and sound better and feel better. When really there's this beauty in just like churn and burn and iteration. And I think like I like the Mark Rober approach, the engineering sort of approach of like fail. And that is how you accelerate it, you know? And I think that there's plenty of times like where that doesn't work out for me, you know, like I sold a 2018 car and in a heartbeat bought a 1993 Honda Accord and was like, this is going to work out just fine. And I tell you what, the car's not outside right now. It's at the fucking mechanic, obviously, because it's 30 years old, Barrett. And the AC can't get fixed by this mechanic. Like you didn't do any research, dude. Like you just bought the car, you know? So it's like, that's a reflection of how it could not work out. I don't think smash and grab's the way to live every aspect of your life. But I do think that like with our careers and, or wanting to have a career doing what you love, I think people are oftentimes very scared to make the leap and afraid to fail in front publicly in their art, in their what they love. When really, I think if they can understand too that the failure and getting over it is inspiring to others, because everybody's scared of that. Like, you know, I definitely put clothes on in the morning sometimes and go like, you know, not sure if that matches. But okay, here we go. We're going out the door.
So
I'm kidding.
You gave the example of the Honda, and I don't want to dwell on such a painful subject, but you talked about failure there. What's been your most valuable failure that's perhaps accelerated your learning curve?
Oh, man. I think like that's really tough. There's a lot of like tiny failures across. So I'm trying to think of like one. There was a moment like I think like managing people at Goodr has led to some of my bigger like chest failures that have made me a better person when it comes to vision and looking ahead and realizing that the decisions you make and the plan that you're putting ahead like doesn't just affect you now, it affects a team of people. And it's important that you're looking ahead. I can be very much so either present or 10 years ahead. And I'm not necessarily looking 6 months out. I used to. I think I'm doing better now. But being encouraged to do that the way we do things over there at the company, realizing that, I'm not understanding how to scale, and that ultimately is going to lead to like having to redesign this team, which ultimately leads to like having to let someone go. And stumbling through that, you know, was a huge learning curve for me. I am an emotional person, and I definitely haven't necessarily had to interact in a professional way with so much emotions tied to it. And so all that stuff mixed up, I think I just kind of failed at being a good leader to help someone transition out of a job, you know, and like all that like has really affected, I think, the way I approach leadership now and wanting to make sure that I have vision for people. If I see trouble ahead, like letting them know, not surprising people and blindsiding them with information. That's really big to me. And something that I don't think I was expecting to be a part of when you're like in film school and you're like, I'm going to make movies for a living, you know, like I didn't have any vision that I would be in a salary job ever, or that I'd be managing people ever. And so I feel like when I approached difficult situations in that job, I was like just shocked and like, I never thought I'd be here, where it's like, you could have had some vision to know that like, this is where things are going. And now I'm like, that's kind of what I focus on a lot is what does the next year, 2 and 3 look like? And how do I set up my team for success? Not just me, you know?
Okay. So we mentioned there a little bit about team and the people around you. So on feedback, who gives you the feedback, the difficult feedback, the stuff that perhaps you don't want to hear, but actually it's the right thing for you?
Definitely. There's a lot of good. I mean, this is kind of like we're in the thick of it at Goodr all the time, like talking about feedback. It's a great place for that. Stephen Lee's, he's good. He's really good at it. Him and Mike Eddy, those two guys are who I work with a lot. They're the sort of, I guess, higher ups, if you will, at Goodr that I answer to, and they're great at giving me good feedback, and I trust their opinion. I think there was one of these times, I can't remember when it was, and Carrie Blunt as well. I used to work with her a bunch, and she's not at Goodr anymore, but I remember a very particular, really difficult conversation with Mike and Carrie where they were, I remember the look in their eyes that they were like, I hate doing this. I don't want to be doing this. Right. Like, but I was very emotional at the time. I was going through a breakup. I was going through a move. Like, it was just like clear that I was letting a lot of these emotions affect how I was interacting with everybody. And they were letting me know that, and they suggested that I like take some time away. And I remember being so just mad at that. And that you get really upset too when someone's right. I do, at least. I'm like, fuck you. Like, and that was a big moment for me. I remember leaving and like really processing all of that and like allowing my emotions to subside, taking the time they asked me to take. And then kind of on the other side of it, you are like, yeah, you realize, what does this all matter sometimes too? I think nowadays, like, Steven and Mike are still just going to be continuously doing that, but encouraging my team to as well. And they're doing much better at it. I think and as long as what I'm realizing too, is I got to be open to it. If I'm all reactionary, they're not going to be doing that. And, you might think that you have this pleasant time of nobody giving you difficult feedback, but they have it. They're just holding on to it, and they're now not saying it to you, which is going to fester and become a problem later. So, I think my team's getting a lot better at it. And I was literally having conversations yesterday where I'm asking them, about giving me feedback directly, challenging them to do it and not being reactionary. Yeah, like I said, just sitting there, taking it. And then the more it starts to come out, I think the more as long as you're open to it, the more you can start to really realize that like, oh, these are the growth points for me. And how wonderful would it be if I could get on top of those things and that my team could openly speak to me. There's 7 of us, including me. So yeah, there's six people on my team, and all very different people as well. Right. And so I think I have particularly, we have this producer on our team. Her name is Elena. And like, it's kind of this really, right now it's this good thing where like, we're a yin and yang, and we're getting better and better at working together every day. But like, we've been through a journey. I also have this editor, producer, Duncan, and like, he's just slaying stuff, and we have a great relationship. And like, I can call back to when we're like in a room, like really it's not working. Like, I'm frustrated with stuff he's editing. He's frustrated with my notes. Right. And then now we just have a better relationship because we leaned into that stuff and worked through it. And I think the pre-salary Barret bails on that stuff because it's freelance contract work. If you're frustrated with somebody or it's not working out, you just need to bail on them and hire someone else. And so I think I've learned different skills working through these issues. And like, now I've got people on my team, like Duncan and Elena just mentioned, be remiss not to shout them all out. John, Brittany, Beth, Tofuti, they all are like telling me now, hey, that wasn't cool. You messed this up, or you said you're going to be here and you dropped the ball, blah, blah. And they're living by example now, and that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's really interesting because I think even like 10 years ago, like if you think of yourself 10 years ago, like if you were having a conversation with yourself looking up now, like would you almost even recognize yourself how far you've come? Because anyone who struggles with feedback and perhaps is very emotional, that's a journey to go on to get to a point where people can openly say to you in your workplace, you know, this is what I think. And like you say, people are doing it for the right reasons. It's not a malicious thing. You know, it's ultimately to help you raise your performance, but actually creating that environment and that confidence in people in your team to go, hey, I know I can say this to him and he's not going to bite my head off. Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah. And I mean, I literally got feedback yesterday. Like Elena told me that, you know, she was like, I feel like, you know, a couple of years ago, if I said X to you, you would have, you know, you would have emotionally reacted, and you're better at that now. And I was like internally, like emotional, like, no, I wouldn't have. Thank you for the feedback, you know, like, so yeah, it's good to be like, hear that, but I do feel it. I do feel different. I think that 10 years ago, Barret looking at me right now would have arrogantly been like, yeah, dude, of course he's sick, bro. I'm sick. I'm like, all right, buddy, calm down.
Right. I wanna change tack slightly because there's a few insights that I know our listeners are going to want to hear. Watching Kyle do his thing, you know, in your commercials and these other activities that he gets up to. Talk us through what it's like behind the lens, because I watch commercials or things go out and I genuinely think, what is it like in a production meeting to get to that from, you know, a blank sheet of paper? Because I can think of a much more conservative Britain that's not as comfortable with that sort of outrageousness. And yet when you look at it, you're like, that they look like they're having so much fun, which is obviously the point. But what's that like being the other side of the lens?
Man, it means a lot hearing you say that. A big thing I talk to everybody about the sets that we want to create is that they're fun. I want people to look at the content and think to themselves, that looked fun to make. I think everybody understands now the behind the scenes is kind of blurring sometimes. Like immediately after somebody sees something, they almost want to watch the tutorial. Tell me how you did that. And I think that there's the technical side of things, but then there's also just like this aspect of movie sets being fun, creating the content being fun, being on set, being there. And a lot of times, like when you get to a professional level, it's not fun. Like it actually becomes very stressful, and there's a lot of pressure and a lot of money being spent. And so it means a lot you said that. I think that that's a big thing. Like we talk about it, as long as, is that going to be fun to do? Is that going to be fun to experience? And then, yeah, I don't know, like we have the culture at Goodr's like created a very idea fountain environment. Everybody there has a lot of ideas, and we're trying to constantly create situations in which we can pool all those ideas together, but execution is everything. And I think that we have a few tactics that help us. You know, done is better than perfect, obviously. Like, you know, don't, in this world of silliness, comedy, not taking yourself too seriously, I do think too that like you can overspend on a joke. It doesn't need to be too crazy. That's kind of the beauty of it. But then also, like, I think that it's the absurdometer is what we've created, this dial, highly technical device called the absurdometer. It's never at zero, by the way. That it's just, we've capped it minimum at 25%. But we have serious discussions about the absurdometer and what it is on certain projects. And I think creating fun parameters like that help. And when I talk to other creators and other photographers or filmmakers about our point of view, like there's no way I'm not mentioning the absurdometer and how high we're going to crank it. And a lot of times we're like, crank it, go for it, you know, and that allows them to have fun, I think, on set as well. But we have all these tools, like our phones themselves can do quite a bit. And I think that ideas are cheap. So really understanding the brand and our core values, fun, authenticity, be unabashedly yourself, unless you're an asshole. You know, we're recklessly committed to fun, blah, blah, blah. Sunglasses. If you can kind of understand the ethos and what we're about, then really like sky's the limit, man. I'm trying to blow this thing up. I'm trying to get more voices in, and expand on what we creating stuff can be like, what it can feel like behind the lens. Yeah, I don't know. Fun is the word though, man. That's I'm glad that you said it.
Well, and I think about it because obviously after Do was like watching all the different stuff that you're involved in and seeing some of the footage, and then out of nowhere, I can't even remember when it was, but sometime in the fall for you guys. See, I'm getting with the lingo. But there was an advert on Netflix came up, and my wife said, "Hey, we should watch that. It's basketball. You love basketball." So we're sitting there watching it, and I just messaged you out of the blue, like, "Is Adam Sandler wearing your sunglasses?" Like, and you were like, "Yeah," but because I'd got that fun association with it, the second that product appeared, I knew exactly where it had come from because of the association with the fun aspect. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like en masse, everyone's getting more comfortable, almost like desensitized to the point where there isn't that much outrageous stuff because everyone wants to play it safe because that looks good on the brand and all those sorts of things. Whereas what you guys do takes it so far beyond that when I see something there, it stands out so clearly. And I'm saying that as a consumer, but it was just blindingly obvious to me that you guys are having fun, and that is through and through, by the sounds of it, what the brand does.
Absolutely. I mean, I really feel like it became so apparent to me that is the key. Like after the pandemic, when we were back on set again and we were really trying to just power through, you're like wearing masks outside, and stuff, and trying to just keep the industry going. The film industry definitely just tanked and was rebuilding, and like, it became very apparent to me that like bringing people together to make stuff again is so much bigger than just this, whatever we're making right now. There's that thing. And then there's also like taking care of people, the unions out here sticking together, and 10-hour days and holding true to that, being safe on set. Like all those things are like, have become really important to me. And I've realized that like, if you create those environments and you can talk to people after the shoot last week and they're like, dude, that was so much fun. I want to do that again. I don't even need to know what the script was. I don't even need to know what you guys were shooting. If I'm talking to people and their experience was a blast and they had a good time, I know that you probably shot something pretty fire. Like, I'm excited to see it because I know that like I'm going to see that through the faces of the talent on set and the way that this is being captured. I can tell that the creators are having fun.
Excellent. Well, there's only a few more things I want to ask. The first one is for a lot of people that are aspiring to get into the industry. And maybe 20 years ago, if I was talking to somebody who works in that space, it would look very different because of obviously the social media and all of those sorts of things. But for a youngster now to be able to create, a YouTube channel off their phone at home about almost anything and turn that into a career is now more viable than it's ever been. So having now been on this journey kind of almost pre-social media all the way through to now where you guys obviously make incredible use of it, what's your advice to young people out there that are thinking, I'm really interested in this, but not just scratching the itch, like you said, take the dive and go to film school or whatever it is? What would your advice be to those people?
I think be professional. Your video that you make, your skill sets that you're learning, like they're not the special part. Your relationships with people and yourself and your voice are the special part. Like these are all just tools. It's easy to get lost in the TikTok templates and the things that you can do there or the Premiere capabilities. And I think learning all that stuff is good and boots on the ground is good, but mainly focus on your voice, your connections with others, being professional. Like if you're trying to do things yourself, then yeah, you got to kind of be a business owner. You're your own brand, and that stuff will help you elevate your career. Being a talented creator is the prerequisite,
Okay. Now, the next question, second to last, is you've done so much already. I almost struggle to kind of comprehend how much you've done up to this point already. But like you said, you're now kind of looking a little bit more strategically going forwards. So what should we be looking out for that's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I'm so grateful that where I'm at in my career is where I want to be. I can't thank everybody around me enough for being a part of that journey. So for me, like, I want everybody to be excited about what's coming out of Goodr. Like, we're just continuously going to push the envelope of absurdity and ridiculousness, but we're also going to ground it in heart and, like, hopefully continue to provide people joy and escapism and fun. And there's a lot of, like, really cool things we're working on that I hope people can just, like, experience and enjoy. And events that we put on as well, we're trying to get out there and be with the people just as much. And so, like, if you can go to a Goodr event at some point, you should definitely show up. And if you can go on, there's a lot of groups out there, I think, do runs and things like that, if you can do that stuff, but also just, like, follow me and the Goodr journey. And we're going to be sharing so much more content all the time. Our TikTok's about to get crazy. I'm just really excited about all that. And I think that if everybody's following that journey and me, like, soon enough, probably share some more, like, short film stuff I'm working on or another narrative project here or there. But I'm grateful that everything I'm excited about right now are these larger projects that are happening over at Goodr.
That's awesome. And then I've got a bit of a curveball question to throw you, because we talked earlier about what 10 years ago Barret would say to you now. But what are you going to say to 50-year-old Barret looking forwards?
Yeah, that is a curveball. I hope you figured out how to relax. Are you retired? I have so many questions, bro. They're all questions. What's up? If I'm going to say something, I think I would, what would I say? I mean, man, I hope you're healthy and, I hope you've taken care of yourself along the way. I think I could probably make that judgment call based off of what 50-year-old Barret looks like. Probably like, yikes, dude. Oh my God. What happened to your hair? No, I'm just kidding. I knew that you lost that at 35. I'd probably just chirp him. It'd be a good time. I don't know, dude. That's a fun question. That's wild to think about.
I listened to a podcast. Actually, David was on, and I'll have to send it to you over at Do. And you had to write a letter to your almost like retiring, or as a retiree, casting your mind back to your childhood self. What would you write a letter back to yourself saying? And they are heavy, but they're really, really interesting because, I got visions of you, like, swanning around the retirement home with your glasses on, and you're off to the golf course, and it's all good.
That's right, dude. I was like, I hope at 50 I'm like quite similar, a little spunky still, but definitely, like, I think I hear the reverberations in my brain of other people giving themselves advice. And I'm thinking about this right now, even, like, that is like, hey, slow down. Don't worry so much about the journey. Like, I think that is just kind of, I'm trying to think of a way. It's weird because typically you'd be like, oh, what would you say to yourself? Like 20 years ago. And those are easier to answer. If I'm talking about myself in 50, that's, like 20 years from now. And I think I just have questions on my performance mentally. And, you know, I'm more like, did I relax ever? Did I calm down? Like, did I ever, you know, like feel like I was caught up? I think sometimes there's always this thing I'm chasing where I want to be like caught up, but I don't know, caught up to what, you know, like I don't know, but I'm always kind of like feeling like I'm behind something. And, you know, hopefully I can look at my 50-year-old self and be like, you sorted that out, right? You're not behind. You're ahead. And then my 50-year-old self is probably going to laugh at me and be like, oh, you child.
Well, through some form of fantastic editing, what we're going to do is we'll put a date in the diary for, you know, when your 50th is, and I'll crop the questions you just asked yourself there, and we'll go back and answer them and see if you've actually ticked those boxes.
Yeah, dude. That would be wild. It'd be like an AI sort of version of myself.
Well, Barret, it's been absolutely awesome. I've been wanting to pin this down for so long now, and I'm hoping this is not the last time you come into the UK, because, the last time you were here was absolutely wild, and looking forward to hopefully crossing paths again soon.
It absolutely can't be the last time I come to the UK. I love coming out there. And honestly, if the dude doesn't invite me back, like I'll find my way to that farm. I will pop out of a bush. There's no way they're keeping me out of that place.
Well, it's just a huge thank you for your time. Really grateful. And we'll make sure we put the links to everything you and Goodr are doing. And probably Pete as well, because I think Pete might have to make an appearance at some point in the future. But it's been absolutely awesome. So thank you. Yeah,
absolutely link Pete. He's doing all kinds of cool stuff, and definitely it's fun to, I love that we have such a partnership and we work so well together, because we are quite different as well, you know, and we're also over 10 years apart. But he's one of my favorite people in the world. So I appreciate that you even said that. Yeah, you should get him on. But thank you for doing this. Like I don't know. I don't know what the hell I just said. I'm kind of panicking now. Like I just blacked out for an hour, but you know, hopefully something of relevance. And I'm like name dropping people. I hope my entire team's like, why are you mentioning me? And the feedback I gave you yesterday, it's like, cause I don't know. It seemed relevant at the time.
A huge thank you for joining us today. You can connect with today's guest and all our Rogue Monkey podcast socials through the links below this episode. If you're involved in a business, we would also love for you to check out our collaboration with Richard Cheetham MBE, our episode 44 guest, the link to which is also in the show notes. Finally, just a quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast, however you're joining us today, and please do pass this episode on to at least one person you think would take inspiration from it. Have a great week, and thanks again for being part of the Rogue Monkey podcast community.